Welcome to Awakening the Warrior. I'm your host and guide, KB Hannibal. In our last episode, we explored generational conditioning, how it shaped us into being the black sheep, and why following the herd was never our path. We talked about the safety nets every family creates, regardless of nationality, culture, or language. These structures were built and preserved to honor tradition and family unity. But when those safety nets outlived their purpose, they stopped shielding and started suffocating. What once protected the family began to hide its darkest truth: abuse, emotional neglect, mental wounds, and sometimes sexual trauma. Control patterns started to emerge, secrets took root, and slowly those safety nets became traps. But then came the black sheep, the one who couldn't live in the family closet any longer, the one who cracked open the door, stepped into the truth, and spoke up. The one who stopped performing, who sought something deeper, a sense of self and a sense of peace. The black sheep isn't angry. We don't hate our families. We aren't trying to break bonds. We're trying to rebuild them. We long for connections, for love and nurturing spaces where truth isn't punished. But healing becomes difficult when older generations are still clinging to the way things used to be, and they're unwilling to evolve. They say we're not family oriented, but the truth is we crave family more deeply than anyone. We just want a healthy family. And some of us go on to create our own families. And even then, the old wounds follow us because we love our children fiercely. But sometimes we may seem a little distant, not knowing how to fully be present. We overthink our parenting decisions, comparing every choice to our own childhood pain. And I know I'm guilty of that. Sometimes when one of my children did something that was not acceptable, I had to dig within myself and say, how did I feel at that age when I did so and so? And what do I think my punishment should have been? And then I go on from there to create my consequence. And more than likely, I'm probably being more lenient than I should be. We try to right the past through our kids, but in doing so, we sometimes avoid necessary structure and consequences. Why? Because we haven't fully healed. We haven't yet processed that we can't fix what was done to us by overcorrecting. We have to face it. We have to feel it, and we have to forgive it. Many black sheep are empaths, deeply sensitive to emotional energy of others. We adapt and we please, even when it costs us our own peace. And that's why boundaries are essential. And that's why forgiveness matters. It's not for them, but for us. We don't have to forget, but we do have to let go. We're no longer children in survival mode. We're adults with choices, voice, and agency. We don't need to place blame, and we don't need to wear the label of victim. We are the ones who chose to heal, and that is where our power begins. Here's a gentle path that you can walk on as you move from blame to release, or from heaviness to liberation. To start off, you want to honor the weight you've carried. Before you can forgive yourself, give yourself space to feel, fully feel. It's okay to name what happened. Acknowledge what drained you or what hurt you and what you had to survive. Forgiveness doesn't require minimizing your pain. It begins by respecting it. Tell yourself, I deserve better, and I'm allowed to grieve what I didn't receive. To honor the weight means to finally see it without judgment and without shame. There's emotional weight that you're carrying. The pressure to suppress your feelings to keep peace, or carrying family secrets that were too heavy for a child. Silencing yourself to avoid being misunderstood or rejected. And this causes physical and mental exhaustion. By constantly managing others' emotional states at the expense of your own, or living in survival mode, hypervigilant, anxious, disassociated, holding on to pain through your body, tension, insomnia, fatigue, stress, it causes a spiritual and identity burden because you are used to being the caretaker or the fixer or the peacemaker in dysfunction, internalizing generational expectations that never belonged to you, or doubting your worth because love was conditional or withheld. And usually, this is where you start to have those issues in your adult life. You start to have relational trauma with the different people in your life because you are always being made responsible for adult feelings, or you're trying to now navigate a toxic relationship that's rooted in trauma bonds. And this can be with your significant other, your partner, your wife, your husband, or family members, sometimes even your children. Or you feel guilty for creating boundaries and choosing peace. So you inherit a silence and start mimicking patterns that help you become smaller because it's all that you knew. Or you swallow your words that your inner child screams to say. But there's resolutions for forgiveness and emotional release. Forgiveness isn't a single act, it's a process. And it's one that it takes root in compassion, clarity, and choices. You want to start off by giving yourself validated grief. Before you let go, allow yourself to feel it all with honesty. Create a sacred space. Journal in a space. Speak out loud. Cry. Validate your experience as real, unfair, undeserved, because that acknowledgement is the gateway to release. Write a letter that you'll never send. Let your thoughts flow without censors. Write to every person that's hurt you in your life. And you're not doing this for them, you're doing this for you. And you're going to say what you never got to say. You're going to tell them how they made you feel, how they made you self-doubt, how they took away your worth, or how they believe they was taking away your worth. You want to let them know everything, every feeling they made you feel, everything that made you uncomfortable. And then you'll keep this letter. You're going to burn it and you're going to bury it, or whatever symbolizes release for you. And at the end, you want to start setting your boundaries. So you want to start practicing compassion with boundaries, because you can have compassion for their pain, but you will not minimize your own. We're going to recognize their limitations, but do not excuse the actions. Tell yourself, they did what they knew, and I know better now. Which brings me to a quote from my mom. She always said, it's up to you to break the chains. If you don't like something, then change it. When you know better, you do better. And that's always stuck with me. And whether she knows it or not, her words are the very reason this podcast probably exists. When you know better, you do better. It's up to you to break the chains. If you don't like something, change it. So you're reframing the narrative. And this is another way to resolve suppressed emotions and help to release them. It's also essential for anyone that's stepping into shadow work. And we're going to get into shadow work on our next episode, because shadow work is a very important step after forgiveness to begin your healing. We're going to rewrite our internal script. Reframing the narrative isn't just about looking back. It's about recognizing unmet needs and choosing to meet them now with intention and compassion. So we're going to start this off by asking yourself, what did I need then that I can give myself now? What did I need then that I can give myself now? First thing that you needed then that you can now give yourself is validation. Because you needed someone to say, your feelings are valid, your emotions are valid, your actions are valid. You are not crazy for feeling this or feeling this way. Now, give yourself permission to feel deeply and trust your emotions. Validate your emotions. Unconditional love. Then you needed love that wasn't based on performance, silence, or perfection. Now you can love yourself as you are, not who others needed you to be. You don't have to pretend with yourself because you know who you are. And it's okay if no one else accepts that. I always told my daughter this: be who you are. You want to be a fairy? Be a fairy. Be the best fairy ever. But be who you are. And every day after school, she would come in. This was during elementary school. Every single day. And she would put on her tutu and these big furry slipper boots and this big tutu dress. And I would ask her, how was your day in school today? And as she's twirling and spinning and jumping, she's telling me about her day. And I remember my mom saying, that girl is just as crazy as you are, and you allow it. And I found it funny because I was sitting there going mentally out of my mind with this kid spinning and twirling in front of me as she's telling me her day. I couldn't keep up, but it allowed for her to be who she wanted to be. She was winding down from a 6-hour sit in school. And this is how she wound down. Who am I to take that from her? And now that's the best memory that I have. I could have said, girl, sit down. Go sit down somewhere. What is you doing? Like we were told. Or you're not going to be spinning up and all around my house. Go sit down and tell me what you did in school. Get your homework out. But instead, I chose to allow her to twirl and jump and crawl over the chair as she's unwinding and telling me about her day. And I feel like that allowed her to love herself for who she is. Because now I see her doing things the way she wants. And even when I say, I don't kind of like that, she'll tell me, it's okay, Mom, I like it. And as someone who feel my identity was put on pause or put on silent, I back off at that moment because she's an individual. Even though she came through me, she's not me. And there's no normal way to be. You're normal in whatever you do. We allowed society to come in and tell us what was normal. But more than likely, 85% of us are locking our what we consider weirdness inside of us so we can present normal. If we all just be normal, being normal meaning be who you are, that would become the norm. But in today's society, normal is robotics. Fall in line, follow the leader. That's what's considered normal. That's not normal. God made us all differently. God gave us our own separate characteristics. So unconditional love is something that every child need, every person need. And if you're not treating yourself and loving yourself unconditionally, we're going to start that today. If you're not loving your children unconditionally by allowing them to love themselves, we need to start that today. Which leads to the next one, emotional safety. Because you needed a safe space to cry, to speak, to be heard. But now you can create emotional sanctuaries through boundaries, through therapy and truth-telling. You needed someone to protect you from harm and tell you that you didn't deserve the things that you went through. Nurturing and protection. Now you can protect your inner child by honoring your voice and choosing peace over chaos. And now we're back to boundaries again because you needed someone to show you that it was okay to say no. I say no without guilt. I'm learning. And in the beginning, it was very hard because I overthought it. I kept second guessing myself. I was feeling bad because remember, most black sheeps are empaths. So we're feeling what they're emitting in the atmosphere. We're feeling it. And we're always willing to disassociate with what we feel inside to cater to what someone else's feelings are. I want you today, for the first time, say no to something and don't hold on to it. Say no and go. That's going to be our motto. Say it without guilt. And even if you feel guilt, let it go. Let it go. Because if you say no and go, you're going to move on to the next thing in life. You're going to move on to your next destination. You're going to move on to your next feeling. Say no and go. Don't hold on to it. Even if you're sitting there amongst the people you need to say no to, say no and go. Can you babysit for me tonight? No, I'm sorry, I can't. What's everybody doing later on? Are we going to sit out on the patio? No and go is our new motto. Only say yes when it aligns with love. And you need the freedom to be yourself. And I might be going back and forth, I'm starting to notice, because the freedom to be yourself aligns with that unconditional love. I love myself as I am, not who others needed me to be. Freedom to be myself. I needed the freedom to express who I was without shame. But now I choose authenticity over approval. I no longer shrink myself to fit old molds. And like I said, my little fairy twisting and twirling all day after school. She had that freedom to express who she was without shame. A voice. You needed someone to listen without dismissing you. Now you can speak boldly, write, podcast, create, because your truth matters. Your voice is what is going to help free yourself. Voice of liberation and a space to rest, because you needed rest that wasn't labeled as lazy or weak. I understand that back in the older days, everyone needed to play tough. So there was no room to sit down, no room to take rest. And a lot of them are now sickly or may have passed away earlier than they should have. But a lot of them were scolded and labeled as lazy and weak, the ones who did decide to take rest. And I feel like this is also what causes the breakdown on our nervous system and our bodies and help cancers flow, because we're not giving ourselves time to rest. We're on full speed. You wake up in the morning, you're getting ready for work or school, you're grabbing something for breakfast on the way to go, eating in the car most of the time probably, eating fast food afterwards because you got so much work that you're bringing home to do. You don't have time to cook. By the time you finally get in bed, it's probably 1 o'clock in the morning. You got to be back up at 6, and you're doing this 5 days, 6 days a week. You needed rest. But that moment you lay down on your day off and say, today I'm not doing anything, you have people calling you. What are you doing? Why are you still in the bed? You're just being lazy. What are you doing in the bed? It's Saturday, it's Sunday. Get out the bed. You let your phones rest. At night, you plug them in and you let them charge. You let your computers rest or you place them on a charger. We let everything else rest. because internally we know they need to rest in order to continue to go. You will not have a phone past 0%. At 1%, you're running around crazy trying to find that charger. Rest. If technology needs a rest, what makes you think you don't? Let yourself rest. Honor your body's need to slow down and recharge. The same way you needed compassion when you made mistakes, you're going to forgive yourself now. You're going to offer yourself grace instead of punishment. Compassion. Give yourself compassion. And this kind of narrative reframe helps remind people that healing doesn't just mean moving on. It means becoming the safe space you never had. Ask yourself, what did I learn from surviving this? Who am I becoming because I chose to heal? Turn the pain into purpose and transform forgiveness into freedom. You want to practice detachment, but not denial. Forgiveness does not require reconciliation. You're allowed to walk away, create a distance, or close the chapter while you're still releasing. Forgiveness is for you. It's not a contract with them. And in the process, you want to forgive yourself too, because often we carry shame for what we tolerated or what we missed or how we didn't protect ourselves. But healing asks us to forgive. Forgive the version of us that didn't yet know how. You survived the best way you could with what you had, and that matters. Speak it out loud, whether it's therapy, a trusted conversation, or your own podcast. Use your voice. When pain is spoken, it loses its power. Give language to your healing so others can find theirs too. And one of the hardest truths is some people will never own what they did. They may not even apologize. They may not even recognize what they did. They may not change. But your healing isn't waiting for their understanding. It's a door you open for yourself, not for them. Forgiveness is not approval. It's release. It's letting go of what continues to poison you. And then at the end, you want to create your own closure. If you can't say it to them, say it to yourself. Like I said, write a letter. Don't send it. Look yourself in the mirror and speak it into the mirror. Create a ritual of release. Burn a note, your rock, cleanse the energy. You're not waiting for someone else to free you. You're walking yourself out of the cage. And sometimes what lingers is not just what they did, but what we tolerated, what we didn't say, what we absorbed. And that's okay. You did what you had to survive. And now you're learning to live. And that shift deserves grace. And at the end, you can let the peace be the proof. You may never get an apology, but you'll feel the shift inside you. When their name doesn't tighten your chest, or when you can speak your story without shame, or when your boundaries no longer shake when tested, that's proof. That's transformation. That's the warrior rising. You've listened, you reflected. Maybe you've even felt your own story rise to the surface. Today, we honored the weight, the emotional, mental, generational load that so many of us have carried for far too long. We named it, we held it, and we began the process of setting it down. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing. It's about releasing, about choosing peace over resentment, truth over blame, healing over hiding. So as you step into your next chapter, I invite you to participate in the forgiveness challenge. So I've set up 2 forgiveness challenges. And I want you to take a minute. So if you're driving, you might need to pull over for this. If you're somewhere where you cannot give this your direct attention, come back to it later. But if you are where you can do this, let's start by taking a deep breath. Hold that breath and exhale. And you want to repeat that 2 more times. And now, I want you to repeat after me. You can repeat this out loud. You can journal it within the quiet of your spirit if you're somewhere where you can't speak out loud. But you want each line to be a release. And we're going to start with forgiving others. I forgive anyone who has ever caused me harm, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I forgive anyone who created trauma in my life, knowingly or unknowingly. I forgive anyone who added to my self-doubt and poor self-esteem. I forgive anyone who abandoned me when I needed love, support, or protection. I forgive anyone who abused their role or position in my life. I forgive anyone who gaslit me into doubting my own reality. I forgive anyone who made me feel unseen, unheard, or unworthy. I forgive anyone who silenced me in the name of respect, tradition, or control. I forgive anyone who took advantage of my empathy and willingness to love. I forgive anyone who denied my pain or dismissed my boundaries. I forgive anyone who failed to show up for me consistently. I forgive anyone who withheld the apology or accountability I deserved. And I forgive those who couldn't give me what I needed, not because they didn't care, but because they didn't know how. I forgive you, not because you asked, and not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to heal. And take a second and let that resonate inside of you. Because forgiving is about releasing. You can't forgive them and continue to hold on to it. You can't forgive them and continue to blame them. You can forgive them and not forget, so you don't repeat that same pattern. But when we forgive, again, that doesn't mean you have to reconcile with anything that makes you uncomfortable. We're not doing this for them, we're doing it for ourselves. When you forgive, you're letting go of those negative emotions because that's stirring inside of you and that's creating stress. It's creating all kinds of issues inside of you. You have to let that go. You have to let that dysfunction rise up out of you. You have to keep it out of you. You want to fill yourself with positivity. You want to create a peaceful atmosphere inside your soul. And you can't do that when you're still holding on to everything that's caused the traumas in your life. It's garbage. Sweep it all together and put it where it belongs. Throw it out. Let it go. Release it. Do you leave your garbage in your house? You take it out to the trash. You release it. Because it doesn't serve you any longer. You took what you needed from it and you deposited the rest into the garbage can. And you put that garbage can out for trash day. You no longer need it. And that's what we're going to do. Forgiveness is taking what you need to start your healing, letting go of those emotions, releasing them, because you're not going to quite let them go yet. You're releasing them. We're putting them in the trash. And now we're going to work on taking them out, disposing of them. And that's going to start with forgiving yourself. So this is the second part of that forgiveness challenge. Forgiving yourself. And you may think, what do I need to forgive myself for? Well, I have a few reasons that you can forgive yourself. So again, you want to take in a deep breath. Hold it. And release. And you want to do that 2 more times. And now I want you to repeat after me. I forgive myself for staying in places where love was not present. I forgive myself for trusting people who couldn't hold my heart. I forgive myself for silencing myself to keep others comfortable. I forgive myself for putting others' needs ahead of my own healing. I forgive myself for believing I had to earn love through suffering. I forgive myself for dimming my light to stay small, safe, or accepted. I forgive myself for abandoning my own inner child. I forgive myself for not setting boundaries sooner. I forgive myself for the moments I forgot my own worth. I forgive myself for mistaking survival for healing. I forgive myself for not knowing better until now. And I forgive myself for the times I blamed myself for what others did to me. And most importantly, I forgive myself for staying too long, for carrying what was never mine to hold. Because now I know better, and now I choose to heal. I forgive myself completely. I welcome peace into my story. I choose healing over shame, and I am free. This episode was your invitation to shift the weight. In the next one, we're going to go deeper into self-love, boundaries, transformation. And that's what I was speaking of, shadow work. We're going to begin shadow work. Shadow work isn't about blaming yourself. It's about exploring the beliefs and wounds you internalize from the pain. Shadow work is one of the most transformative practices on the healing journey. It's about facing the parts of yourself that you've hidden, denied, and inherited. And doing so with compassion, not shame. It's about integration, not erasure. So you want to ask yourself, what did this teach me about love, trust, and boundaries? What parts of me did I suppress to keep the peace? I would say get a journal or a notebook, write those questions down and answer them, because you're going to need those answers to begin that shadow work. You need to be truthful with yourself. If you hold something back, if you keep those bones in a closet, you can't free them. You'll stay a lost soul. Let everything out. This is you healing you inside out. And until then, stand tall, breathe deeply, and remember, you're not broken. You're breaking cycles. You're not the black sheep. You're the warrior. If you enjoy and found this podcast helpful on your journey, please like, share, and comment. Leave voice messages so that we can interact with each other. Hopefully bring more resolutions to our healing. You can find the episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and links on our Facebook and Instagram pages. Don't forget to download the podcast so that you can listen later. I am your host and guide, KB Hannibal, and this is Awakening the Warrior Podcast.